Today's presentation has a little bit of multimedia content to it. I'm bringing on my friend Brian Harmon again. He had 5 minutes to prepare fame to talk about the coffee table book I want to make of the fields of the old SWCL. You can see the drawings at www.dalewiley.show.net. I hope you enjoy this. I had fun putting this together. Here you go. Hope you enjoy. Okay, so today I'm here with Brian Harmon, my longtime friend Brian Harmon from Before the Empire Strikes Back. That's how I date everything in life. Was we became friends kind of after Star Wars, but before the Empire Strikes Back. Because I remember you had the Cloud City. You were the only friend of mine that had the Cloud City Star Wars play set after it came out.
You know, I had that, and I've since found a book that goes, because I was really impressed with some of the gifts I got for Christmas stuff. My parents spent a lot of money, and I've looked at that show all these toys and things like that, and it shows the actual retail price from that time frame, and I realized my parents weren't quite as nice to me as I thought they were.
They hated you.
Really cheap.
Is it worth anything now?
It would be if I had the box and had it in the box, but no. Not much.
Yeah, so you just play with it without the box?
Yeah, I just still play with it, yeah.
Okay, well, that's good. Okay, so first, Brian, we need to talk about the baseball league that we played in high school. And played in, I'm using that term kind of freely there because I pitched.
More freely on me than you.
Yeah, I mean, I played I played a little bit in the outfield, but I mainly pitched, and you played until your ability as a scorekeeper outran your ability as a baseball player. Would that be true to say?
I have to correct you one thing there. That those abilities were always better as a scorekeeper. Just when the coach discovered that.
And so we played in a league called the Southwest Central League. And that, to me, is the most confusing geographical league name that I've ever heard of.
That's true.
And, because it's Southwest, I don't know what it is central to. I mean, is there a Southwest-West League? I mean, why did they choose that name?
That's a good question. I've never really thought of that.
Well, and now, of course, you're the esteemed head baseball coach of the Crane Pirates, so you need to find that out and report back to us on why that was.
As athletic director, we have SWCL meetings once a month. I'll bring that up.
There you go. Now, the Southwest Central League, at that time, this is kind of late 80s that we were playing in this. And so I'd say that since then, a lot of the kind of anomalies that were there at that time have since gone by the wayside, but I want to go back to the classic days of the Southwest Central League, and I've always wanted to make the coffee table book of the fields of the Southwest Central League, the SWCL. And you know what? We might need to contribute some drawings to this to be able to really, emphasize some of the main points. But let's start with some of the more unusual fields. Let's start with Galena. The Galena Bears, they were actually the state champions in, was it 1986? 85. Okay. So let's talk about what was unusual about the Galena field.
Well, there was not much that was usual other than the size of the infield diamond. That's about all that was usual there. Okay,
because Galena's field was kind of set by the school, and what did they forget to do in left field?
Put up a fence.
They forgot to put up a fence, which, they put one in right field, but they didn't put one in left field. And so
I would say they put one at deep first and second base, not in
okay, because the baseball field there was in, like, if you were trying to picture it, it was kind of like a rectangle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, wouldn't that be the best way to describe it?
Yeah, exactly.
Because what happened was you had of course, this is something that has always plagued baseball field designers, is the geography that they've got to work with. So you had an extremely short porch in right field. Like the right field was 200 feet away from the home plate.
They listed it 200, I believe. When people stepped it off, it was closer to 180 probably.
Okay, but then the highway kept running, so left field just kind of extended out forever, or whatever you want to call that, center field, I guess is what you'd call that. Yeah. And so then basically they just never bothered to put up a left field fence.
Well, I have a belief of why they did that is because, back in those days, Galena always hosted the SWCL basketball tournament, and when they had overpopulation of crowds there, they just had to park on the baseball field, so they needed, for cars to be able to drive back and forth and without a fence.
Okay, and actually that's the best, theory that I've ever heard. But what it meant was you could hit a ball 1,000 feet, and you could still get thrown out at home plate if you ran like I did.
Exactly, yeah.
The only problem with that was I would never hit a ball.
I saw you run, but I never saw you hit a ball 1,000 feet.
I was going to say, I don't think I ever came close to any of that. But there were people that did. There was a guy named Gavin Sowell that played for our team, Crane, and, the story is that he hit a ball off of the side of the school, and that would have been, 450 or feet or longer.
Yeah.
And so the other but this did not end the unique qualities of Galena, because in Galena, you also had the fact that you had to determine whether you hit a home run in right field by the sound.
Yes.
And what did that mean?
Well, the highway ran, if the fence was 180 feet, highway probably started 15 feet from there, and then the highway ran adjacent to the field, I guess. So if you hit over the fence from the right field foul pole to a certain right pole in right center, it was a ground rule double, unless it went over the highway. Then it was
right.
Yeah.
And so if it hit the highway, it was a ground rule double.
Right.
But so you had to.
Yeah, at pregame meetings was always, well, how do we know for sure if it hits the road or the shoulder? So Coach Hemphill always said, we'll tell by the dot. Which basically, I'll let you know, and it'll benefit Galena.
And then, of course, the other part that Galena had was kind of in. Of course, it was really hard to determine what center field was, considering how the conditions were. But close to center field, there was a light pole that was put in the field.
In the field of play, yeah.
In the field of play. And I remember our junior year seeing John Jenkins hit a towering, beautiful left-handed swing ball that would have been out of any place in the nation. And it hit the pole and was therefore in play. And John was not exactly using his great speed, and he either ended up with a single or a double.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I think it not only hit the pole, it hit it about as square as you could possibly hit the pole and bounce back to the infield.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, this is like, one of the big light poles, and John just creamed that ball. And then I just remember that he did not make Coach Conrad happy, because I don't believe he hustled. It was not a Pete Rose play for him. So those were the things that made Galena unique. The next one that I always think of is Blue Eye.
Yes.
And, Blue Eye is a town that is almost in Arkansas. It's so far south. And I always kind of think it's an interesting thing, because they mention Blue Eye in the Beverly Hillbillies as being from around where the Clampetts are. And so what do you remember about the Blue Eye field?
Well, Blue Eye was similar to Galena in that it was a rectangle, but instead of 180 feet to the right field line, it was set the opposite, and it was probably, there was but it was to the left field line was 380, maybe 400 feet.
Well, yeah, and say that again about the right field line, because that was like 1,000 feet.
Yeah, it was unending.
Yeah, it was unending. In fact, so in other words, it's kind of the reverse rectangle there.
Right.
And my memory of, what's that?
But bigger
But bigger, yes, definitely. And what I remember was that one of the kids that we played with, Russell Johnson, who's a good pitcher, but his cousin just owned him. Just every time, just tattooed him. And I remember that I was playing, would that have been right? I would have been, why do I even need to ask? It was right field. And so his cousin got hold of a ball, and it actually rolled into the next field. It went so far, and I remember I had to throw it over the backstop to get back into the catcher. And of course, that did not make Russell happy. He was not very pleased with that. But that thing rolled and rolled and rolled, and me and my lack of speed, I did the best that I could to catch up to that.
One of the best ones I saw, this was after I became an assistant coach, one of the best ones I saw, we happened to have a tournament there, and we played the late game, and Jason Cypress hit one so far that the center fielder, we couldn't see when he got to it because he hit into the dark, because the light poles obviously were in play on this field.
And so what did they rule it? Did they rule it a home run or a double?
No, the kid ran it down. The kid went and got it, and they were playing him so deep that they held Jason to a triple, even though wow. Because they were playing him so deep to begin with.
Well, Jason was a pretty magnificent.
Fall into the dark,
And of course, I think my favorite field at that time was Spokane.
Mm-hmm.
Because Spokane was, it didn't have the baseball program that any of the other ones did. No. And so it was kind of an afterthought. And what were some of the things that you remember about Spokane?
Well, I remember if you were sitting in the third base dugout, depending how tall your right fielder was, you might be able to see the top of his hat, or you might not be able to see him at all. Because
I remember that standing on the pitcher's mound, and on the pitcher's mound, a tall right fielder would be, you could see about his chest.
Uh-huh.
But it was, maybe a little bit higher, but the field sloped off so much. And
it was perfectly level everywhere else. It just got to right field.
Right. And the other thing was, though, it had a true jungle gym in center field. And so it had the same kind of ability to throw off anyone that would have to get near it, because they could potentially have to climb into the jungle gym and throw it back into play. It was just one of those things you had to be aware of.
Right.
And technically it was not in the SWCL, but I remember us going to Miller. Do you remember the Miller trip?
I remember the Miller trip. Summer baseball.
What's that?
Was it high school baseball or was it summer baseball?
That was summer baseball, yeah. And but what I remember was we got there and we had this umpire who showed up in overalls and looked like he truly came out of the Clampett family. And that day they just decided it was a really big field. It was part of the Mickey Owen baseball school, but they just decided they weren't going to mow. Right?
Yeah, yes. I mowed it all summer.
Yeah, and so basically you had the kind of two-level outfield where you had the, grass that was probably up to your knees, and then, a part that was mowed like a traditional baseball field. I never figured that out.
But the one thing I do have to say about the umpire that had overalls on, of the two umpires we had that day, at least he wore shoes. His umpire was not wearing shoes. That is the one ejection of Coach Conrad's career.
Yes, it was. He was mad that day. That was a homer situation if there ever was one. A homer.
I think we still won, but it was a homer situation.
I'm not sure we did. That was the summer of discontent. That team did not come together and coalesce like many of our other teams did. But yeah, those are the only ones that I remember as being like truly unique. I do remember the time that we were doing outfield drills at Crane when when I was a freshman, they had basically just wire as a fence, just like, yeah. And I remember leaping for a ball in outfield drills and actually going through the fence in a way so that my feet caught it, and when I landed in push-up position.
And one of the best push-ups you ever did, I'm sure.
And right now, the Crane Field's not looking very good. Did you cause all of that damage?
Yeah. Some severe flooding this time.
Yeah.
Waiting on it to dry out to get cleaned up.
Wow. And yeah, you do a lot with that field. Well, anyway, if I would appreciate it if you consider putting on pieces of paper and sending me a couple of your artist renderings of those fields. But I think those could be. I just think that the big hit of 2016 is going to be the coffee table book of the ballparks of the SWCL. Pretty sure of it.
And we could get pictures of. I'd like to get pictures of what currently sets at those sites now, like Galena's parking lot, which Blue Eye still there.
Yeah, exactly. We should do where are they now kind of moments. Right. And I just don't know that the sloping field in right field in Spokane, I don't know that anyone really did a great job of commemorating that. What about in Blue Eye? Is that park still in play?
It's there. They have a new park, but it's there. It's probably a school playground, it looks like now.
Oh, so we've lost all of the rural charm that we once had.
Yeah.
Okay.
And whatever the dimensions and things were, whatever we draw and the dimensions we write on paper, then those become the official.
Yeah.
Whatever we write down.
That's right. Okay. Well, thank you, Brian, for that.
All right.
This enhanced edition of the Dale Wiley Show includes multimedia content, which means it has a couple of stick figure drawings at www.dalewiley.show.net. Go there, throw some money, buy some books, and have some fun. Copyright 2016.